Thank you for joining us today for the most recent in our series of best practice webinars. Today's topic is the secrets of service account management, featuring James Alexander of Alexander Consulting. Before we get started, a few housekeeping items. The webinar is listen only and it is being recorded. A link to the session recording as well as a PDF of the slide deck will be sent to everyone that registered. And you can use the question panel of your GoToWebinar console to submit questions, and we'll go ahead and address those as we go through the session. If you'd also like to continue the discussion, you can do so on the Service Strategies Network group on LinkedIn, and that's an open group, so anybody can join the group and continue with the discussion about service account management. Just a little bit about Service Strategies. We are a global service improvement company. We provide consulting, training, industry standards, and certification programs that help companies deliver better service and support to their customers. We focus on all service disciplines, including field service, professional services, support, and e-service. Our service capability and performance standards program is used around the world by the industry's leading service providers. And our career certification program, under that program we've certified over 2,000 service managers around the world. So if you're interested, please check those programs out on our website. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Jim now to Alex to take us through the session, and he'll tell us a little bit about himself and then proceed. Take it away, Alex.
Okay. Thank you, Greg. Well, hello, everyone. And today I'm excited to be talking about what I personally consider one of the most important functions, one of the most important roles, not only in the services side of things, but in many, many enterprises, and that is the services account manager. You can see in the slide, and I'm not going to go through specifics on all of this. This will be included in the PDF that goes out. But most relevant to today, I started out many years ago, and in fact, it was about 30-some years ago when I took my first key account management job in the pharmaceutical industry. And then later I did a similar role for Xerox. My emphasis there was mainly on sales and customer service, but over the years I've been involved with designing and putting on, at least probably 15 different types of programs on account management. And then about 7 years ago, in working with my business partners at Service Strategies, they asked me to go ahead and take what I had learned in account management and put together a specific program from the services, the support side of things. And that's where the support account management training was developed. And I'm pleased to say we've run over I think about 40 different sessions, and have had several hundred companies represented there. So enough about that. Let me give you just a quick rundown on some of the organizations that I personally work with there. Again, just for a reference, I don't want to take any time there, but people always ask, who have you worked with in similar type of industries? Now today, and I know many people on board have been involved with past webinars that I have been involved in, but today is going to be a little bit different. I wanted to focus specifically on learning from you what your key questions were about making your SAM group, whether you call them support account managers, service account managers, technical account managers, service managers, CRMs, customer relationship managers, yada, 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 all the same. People that basically own or have responsibility for account success after sales has sold the big deal. So we put a poll out, and here are some of the questions that I'm going to be trying to answer today. But as Greg said, I'm also going to encourage you as we go along, if you have other questions related to the topic, please drop those in. Greg will interrupt me, and we'll talk about those as we go. So I know webinars are a one-way vehicle there, but we'll try to make it as interactive as the technology and what we can do within an hour's time frame. So you can take a gander at the type of things that we have been asked, and I'm going to start off in just a minute zeroing in on the most important responsibilities. Okay, so what are the most important SAM responsibilities? You know, there are lots and lots of knowledge and skills and things that SAMs must do to be most effective, but if we take a big picture viewpoint, I think it rolls down to just 4 components. Number 1 has to do with resolution. When problems come up, how can we solve them quick and how can we solve them fast? This is why the role of support account management came into being from large organizations saying, hey, we're tired of messing around, not knowing who to phone call, how to make your technology work. We want one person, one throat to choke to make things work. So resolution and some research, recent research, proprietary research done by a very large software company shows that this is still the number 1 expectation of someone in the SAM role. And a few best practices we know to make this most successful, and I bet most of us have this first bullet here, but put together a bulletproof, a simple, fast, effective process where we have specific accountabilities along with responsibilities along the way. This is the first step. Now, getting our customers to follow it isn't always easy, but we have to have this, the price of admission. A second component is realize there will be times when we have to go and dive after the lone ball in left field, where we have to, when the fire alarm goes off, grab the cape, don the red boots when appropriate, and throw all of our resources at specific problems, where clearly the issues involved were our mistake, there was miscommunication that we at least participated in, or when we're dealing with issues very important to our customers. So this is a component. Now ideally we minimize this, but we still realize that when appropriate, that is something we have to be involved in. However, along with resolution, and I bet we're all very familiar with this as well, we need to put a priority on avoiding problems. My guess is you've got a lot of smart folks. Probably some of them have been dealing with customer issues for a long time. We know where the problems are. We can predict when they might occur. So how do we work? How can we proactively work on avoiding them? So all of those have to come into play. And the best way to do this, and when I see support account management programs that are rocking and rolling, it's all based on collaboration with the account on who does what, when, where, and how before issues arise. At those initial meetings where we're introducing ourselves and our teams, and we lay out what they can expect from us, what we must expect from them, and again, based on our knowledge, we point out here are potential issues. Hey, we're dealing with complex stuff. Things will go south occasionally. Let's talk about how to deal with these and how we can preempt where appropriate. So if you've read some of my articles, if you've been involved in some of my work before, I put a big emphasis on being proactive, but I wanted us to make sure that we realize that we have to be able to react and react appropriately when the time arises. Okay, so number 2, business, support account management, anything in life is about relationships. So from a SAM perspective, what are some of our best practices? Well, if we go back and do number 1, if we handle resolutions really well, that will go a tremendously long way in helping build and grow our relationships based on the credibility that we've already demonstrated. Another component is requiring SAMs, if you're the manager of that group, to use key account planning tools on our key accounts. Is it a lot of work? Yes, it is. But if we are responsible to go ahead and maintain satisfied key accounts, to go ahead and get them to sign up for contracts, to be loyal enough where they can be used as testimonials, we owe it to them to use the account planning tools that have been developed over the years. There's lots of good ones out there. I am saying if it is a key account, then our SAMs should be responsible for using those tools. Another best practice is to find reasons to meet with executives on a regular basis. The more we're being proactive, the more we're transitioning the role of SAM from tactical to strategic, the more we need to be involved with dealing with executives on two levels. I've done some research on this particular topics, and the best SAM organizations know the power of putting been there, done that SAMs in front of customer executives. They appreciate, they respect those capabilities, and executives will listen much more closely to a SAM than they ever will to one of your salespeople. And also, again, if you're in the services side, the support side of the business, we owe it to your success to get your SAMs in front of your executives. They will pay much more attention to them than they will to you because they know, rightfully so, that we all have our personal agendas. And another component there is how do we measure those relationship building behaviors? Meaning if we're asking people to do that, we need to find a way to track, to monitor, to measure, to make sure that folks are at least trying to go ahead and build relationships, and then the measures of success, primarily retention and relationships, will follow. All right, number 3, getting back to retention. As you can see, these all tie together. The first thing we need to do, again, is do our resolutions really well. The second is do relationships really well. And in most cases, most situations, retention will follow up. But to make sure we're dealing with the right things, as we all know, there are similar issues, problems, opportunities across probably all our accounts. But each one is unique, and the key players in each of your accounts is unique as well. So on at least a yearly basis, I recommend that we do account-specific research to know what it takes to keep them happy. And that is looking ahead. What are their business issues? What are the goals of the overall department? How does what we do tie into their success? So on a yearly basis, take time to make sure we understand their situation. And another best practice, one I hope that you're all doing, is conducting regular multi-level account meetings to review goals, share what's going well, and problem solve what isn't. Most folks would call those QBRs, quarterly business reviews, but oftentimes what I see, the emphasis is putting on giving people a scorecard. Here's where we're at, when we had these issues, how long did it take to resolve them. All good stuff, but that is looking through the world through the rear view mirror. If we're going to be successful, proactive, we need to talk about moving ahead. And there should be multi-level folks involved there. Not only our day-to-day contacts, their management team, and at least a portion of it on a quarterly basis where executives have 15 minutes to an hour to review overall performance as it ties in to what they're trying to do to be successful. We owe it to our organizations to do that. Finally, revenue. The sales world there. What should be our best practices? Do resolutions really well? I bet you know what the next slide is. Do relationships really well? If we can do those are going to go a long way toward driving revenue. However, we also need to take the time to define what is the SAM's role and basically anyone who touches the customer's role in getting new business. It may be very, very non-proactive, where on one end, hey, if the customer says they're interested in new products, new services, new problems to solve, that we pass those on to sales, or it could be much more aggressive, much more active. Let's set that question aside for now, but again, if someone touches the customer, how do we clearly define what role, if any, they have in getting new business? And then, of course, train and support new behaviors. If you want to use SAMs to help you get new business, clearly define what those expectations are, and then give them the training and give them the tools to do that. Cripes, it's very obvious there, but oftentimes that gets left out as we try to move ahead the organization. Provide incentives. Okay. Now, one of the questions, let me pull out my sheet here, was, let me see, should a SAM receive commission from sales? My own personal feeling is in almost all situations, no. Now, there are expectations, but particularly if you're just starting out trying to get SAMs more active in helping the sales process, I would definitely say no. We do need to provide incentives, though. If we're asking people to do things differently, we need to know, they need to know we're recognizing them and we appreciate it. But those incentives don't have to be costly. They don't necessarily even have to be monetary. Just publishing in your company newsletter that you want to point out that SAM A and SAM B deserve special recognition because how they helped the selling effort to land the next big deal, to keep an account what was under competitive pressure. Something as simple as that. I'm a strong believer in giving dinner coupons for $50 or $100 so someone and their spouse can go out to dinner. I don't know a person in our industry yet who doesn't like a gift card from Amazon, for example, but just something that demonstrates behavior. Excuse me, demonstrates that we care about what they're doing. And the reason I say this, and many services executives I've talked to share this, the real power that SAMs have in getting new business is that they're not seen as a threat. They're not seen as a salesperson, someone who has a different agenda other than trying to go ahead and help the customer be successful. So it's very important not to cross that line. If the decision is made to go ahead and give SAMs quotas and commissions there, we run the risk where their behavior changes and all of a sudden the customer looks at you and says, wait a minute, my trusted advisor Sam now looks like he is a salesperson. So we have to walk that line and celebrate successes. I recommend it.
Question.
Sure.
Oh, just a quick question about some of the account planning tools. Have you seen any of the account planning tools out there that might be used in the industry today?
Sure. You know, and many of the tools that your sales organization hopefully is using have direct application. For example, many organizations on the sales side buy into a concept called strategic selling. And that comes with a complete listing they call blue sheets there, where you identify key people, what their roles are, what appropriate actions ought to be by who. There are numerous generic programs like that. In our SAM programs, we bring in 5 key tools that, at least from my experience, I think are the most helpful. One, a very humble tool but is very important, is called a stakeholder analysis. And you can do that off an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper if you want. And that is just thinking through all of the key people involved in making the account successful. What's their title? What is their role in making decisions? And then what are their business issues, the things that they are responsible for? Are they in trying to improve productivity or cut cost or whatever it might be? And then identifying from a personal standpoint, how do they win? How do they look successful in the organization by the types of things that you by yourself or you maybe with your sales team might be recommending? So that would be example. There's other tools that look at how, from an account standpoint, how willing and able they are to move ahead with new ideas. Because again, as you transition your role from being reactive to proactive, tactical to strategic, starting to look ahead to better understand their business issues and how your technology can make them successful, it's important to be able to track and modify and put all this stuff together. I know I'm talking at a high level there, but the first thing I would look for is see what your salespeople are doing. And if you don't find something there, talk to some of the folks at Service Strategies. We'll give you their account information later, and I think they'd be happy to share a few ideas with you. Is that okay, Greg?
Perfect. Thanks, Alex.
Okay. And finally, I wanted to bring up one last comment here, because a lot of people who head up the services business are now being held with their feet to the fire to drive new services revenue. And I bet many of you are nodding your head, right? Or maybe you're supposed to have 20% growth and you're supposed to maintain or improve your profitability. And you probably found out that the sales organization may or probably isn't doing a great job of selling and promoting your services. Maybe they're still trying to give them away. So if you're trying to get your people involved more in revenue driving behavior, you need to think about a little bit on your expectations. For example, if you have, let me use a non-SAM example here quickly. If we were looking at our PS folks, for example, and you wanted to have them, say, be at 70% billability, aggressive goal but realistic, and now you're saying, hey, we'd like to get them more involved in pre-sales. We think they can help our product sellers better position services, sell it better, we could win more stuff, and all of a sudden you have some of your best PS folks spending 2 days a week in pre-sales. Well, we're going to drive them nuts. If we're still rewarding them primarily on billability, but we're changing the role, they may be heroes internally, but the money they make is going to go down, or they're not going to reach their bonuses or whatever targets they have because they're being measured under the old way. So this holds true any change of behavior, but particularly when we're looking at people to be more aggressive in helping to generate revenue.
Alex?
Yes.
Real quick, somebody asked if you could weigh in a bit more on roles and revenue. They say in their experience that it's a core SAM internal organizational issue with points of contention being customer ownership, revenue ownership, and too many points of contact for the customer. Any comments on that?
Well, a lot of stuff bundled in there. Let me see if I can take part of that. And hopefully this next slide may tie into the comment. And if it doesn't, please type in and we'll readdress it. I've done research of over 80 different services executives talking about the customer-facing people role in getting new business. And I gave them a choice saying, where do you want your people to be? Let's say, where do you want your SAMs to be when it comes to selling or helping get new business? And one was saying, hey, listen, keep your head down, do the job, take care of problems, resolve issues, and forget about selling. Number two was, when you hear about opportunities, pass them on to sales. Three was, start to actively looking for opportunities and then pass those on to sales. Four was more aggressive yet, saying actively look, listen, do some research, and start to qualify what good business might be, then then pass it on to sales. Five said, as you can see on the slide, actively look, listen, research opportunities, qualify the need, and work with sales, collaborate to develop proposals and get new business. And six was where SAMs, for example, or PS practice managers or other key technical talent were expected to go ahead and get business on their own. So one step here is, I think, is we're using SAMs, but anyone who touches the customer, what is their role in getting new business? And truly determine what this is as an expectation, and then quantify what that means as far as specific metrics. So everyone should have that. A real big issue, and an important one, and one that seems to get neglected and not, is who owns the customer, when and where. And I'm a strong believer that whatever you call your account manager, your sales guy going after the business, they run the show when they're trying to break into a new organization. The first time sale, it's their responsibility, and they should be following good account management approaches by bringing in the right people to support them. Technologists, maybe services people to help get the business, to sell it right the first time, to sell something that can work, that you can deliver on the promise, that the customer wins, and you can make money on. So that is the first component there. Now, in most organizations, I think it's best to have a handoff. The salesperson is the role of the hunter. Now, the SAM becomes the farmer. Owns the account as far as making whatever has been sold work, which includes resolutions, a key role in relationships, and so on, and trying to expand the share within that account. Now, I know I know there's a lot of other stuff going on, and I know in many organizations, and oftentimes it's important for sales to maintain a role, particularly at the higher levels in the organization, maybe quarterly or once every 6 months, so those relationships don't dry up. I believe in that. But for the day-to-day operations, to me, the SAM should be in control. And one of the biggest areas of contention, I think I have a slide on this later on, is that your best salespeople, once they see that you can deliver on the goods, they absolutely love this. That's less work for them. They're going to say, go get them. How can I help you be successful? So the average sellers are going to think, and they're going to look for you to prove it. And once they've seen it enough, and the star sellers are using this appropriately, they'll go along. It's the bottom 15% of the sales organization where the problem are. They're not competent. They don't want anybody else to know they're incompetent. They can't sell. And they're the ones that say, I do the selling around here. You services guy, when I got a problem, I'll call you. So that's a significant problem. And the only way to get around that is to have heart-to-hearts with sales management, assuming they get it, they understand, and are willing to work to clarify on who does what, when, where, and how. Greg, did I hit most of that, or was there something else I missed?
No, I think you hit that, but on a related question, which kind of dovetails in, have you seen the SAM or account management teams own and manage a customer reference program?
Well, to own and manage a customer reference standpoint, I think, again, I'm sharing my own personal things here. I think the most powerful thing is that services marketing owns the reference program, with a key responsibility of the SAM to get referenceable customers who are willing to participate in the program. So a very active involvement there, but I don't think they should be running that. Whoever pointed that out brings up a critical component, though. When you are looking at asking customers to buy, they will listen to the technical people. They'll at least sales folks come in the door. They'll pay attention to your executives, but the majority of their decisions are made based on respected peers on what they think and say about you and your organizations. So testimonials and reference accounts are absolutely critical. They are by far the most important aspect of selling services, high-level services, solutions there. So that is an absolute necessity. I'm kind of babbling on here. I'm sorry. So the SAM should be highly involved, but that is a services management function, services marketing function. Now, hopefully your organization has real services marketing. That's a whole other topic, and that is an area of weakness in many companies there. But let me just leave it like that, or we'll never get done in an hour.
Perfect.
Okay. Now, I get asked this a lot, to call it business development or whatever, but why should SAM sell? And particularly, a lot of folks who are really strong technically, they kind of, cross their arms and roll back in their chair and say, hey, if I'd have wanted to sell, I'd have went into sales. I like to help people and fix problems. Well, that's okay. And that could very well be kind of the premise on how you were hired. But I think part of this is that maybe we misrepresent, or maybe early in life we saw non-professional selling, and that is mainly kind of warped where we're coming from. I'm a strong, strong believer in this statement, that if an account of ours has a problem or an opportunity that you personally or your organization has the potential to effectively address, to heal or make better or whatever it might be, you're not acting as a professional unless you try to help them. Now, you can call that service, you can call that sales, but the objective is the same. That is the role we are in And to me, this is professional selling. So selling is not evil if it's done where we're trying to help our customers. We're sincerely looking for ways to make their life better. That's how I define selling. But I realize some folks have a challenge in agreeing to that definition, but so be it. Now, we've covered 4 components, looking at the most important roles. I'm really interested on where you see your organizations today. So Greg is going to lead us through a poll where we will have 4 different polls looking at each of these 4 components that I've just discussed. So the first one is going to be on resolution, and we're going to ask you to respond to this statement, that our SAMs facilitate solving customer problems quickly and often avoid problems through being proactive. If you would strongly disagree with that, it would be a 1. If you strongly agree, it's a 5. And you can see the poll coming up here. So please go ahead and take 15 seconds, fill this out. We will provide an aggregate of the information. You or your company will not be pointed out here, but we will see the overall findings. So please take a minute and complete this. And Greg, I'll leave it to you to say when we ought to close the poll.
Okay. Give it just one more second, and I'll go ahead and close it.
Okay. Okay. All right, so this is pretty good. We've got 90% either agree or strongly agree that the SAMs, when it comes to taking care of problems quickly and proactively, we're doing a really good job there. That's awesome. And our other 10% was not that bad, you know, just in the middle or a slight disagreement there. Excellent. Everyone should be pretty proud of those responses. And I guess the only thing I can say is just keep it up. Keep following the system. It seems to work for you. All right, can we move on to the next one, Greg?
Yep. So, here we go.
Okay. The second component there was on retention. And I would bet, or I'm hoping that everybody measures retention of those organizations where have a SAM, hopefully are paying for it. Hopefully there is some sort of service level agreement there. But this gets back to the question we talked about on, all right, you know, where are we as far as creating loyal accounts? So do you strongly agree that we're doing an excellent job of this? Or on the other side, are we pretty poor on the strongly disagree? So figure out which one of those 5 best represents your SAM organization today, and we'll have the results in just a second. Okay.
There we go. You should have the result.
Yeah, sure do. Similar results, 88% strongly agree. Obviously, the folks who are dialing in have some pretty mature organizations who've got the act together. And obviously, if we disagree or strongly agree, this has to be an absolutely critical component. When you look at the funding and how most organizations work, senior management, when they fund SAMs and the related technical folks who support the SAM teams, their number one driver often comes down to just this one number on retention. So I guess I'd make it a priority if we're not in those top 2 areas. Okay, let's move on, please. Our third question was dealing with revenue, and our statement is our SAMs actively support getting more business. And I'd ask you to choose, again, one of those 5. Best describes your SAM organization today. Okay, a little bit different results here. Some strongly agree, outstanding, 15%, 38% agree overall. And then if we kind of put these, the neutral area there, obviously, and I should back up a little bit too, because there are different things that drive this role. If you're in an organization where you just have one sales force and they're product oriented, my own personal opinion is that if you're a services leader, you about have to look to your SAMs and other services folks to help you be successful if you're running a profit center and if you have growth targets there. Just because counting on your product sellers alone in many organizations just isn't going to cut it. However, if you're in an organization where you do have sales folks who get it and are delivering, that's wonderful. I'd say that's a small number. Or if you have a dedicated services sales force who is doing their job. And that might morph or change the emphasis on how much the SAMs need to be involved there. They could be just more actively looking for opportunities and throwing it to service sales. So with those disclaimers, I would say that at least some of us can be more active in selling. It doesn't mean necessarily we're trying to sign contracts there ourselves. It doesn't mean that we're having a quota and we feel like we're being pushed and driven, but we realize the big impact we have inside the organization because of how much visibility we get and how important our role when we as SAMs and our team are functioning well. So for some of us, I would say this might be an area of opportunity. Could we go on to our fourth one, please? All right. This one's looking at our relationships where our SAMs broaden and deepen key account relationships that block out the competition. And I know if you're a researcher, you're saying, Alexander, you're kind of putting a little spin on that, but this is so important. I know organizations who are using their SAM groups strategically, where they're honest enough to say their technology isn't that much better or maybe not quite as good as their competitors, but they feel a really strong SAM program can be used for competitive advantage there. So this is saying that relationships are a critical component up, down, and sideways. So please select one of these 5 and we'll see what you're coming up with. Okay, about 1 out of 5 participants said strongly agree, outstanding. 35% agree, very good there. And then you can see as well as I can read on the chart where we're at. All I would say there, again, and I'm sorry, I don't mean to be a broken record or I guess broken CD here, is that, boy, relationships are the key to business. The SAM is in such a pivotal, visible, critical role that if we take more effort to consider the relationship side, the payback can be absolutely huge to the organization. And I've been talking about from an organizational standpoint, if you are a SAM, it also helps to build your brand. It can make you bulletproof in times of downturns in our economy there. So relationships, particularly maybe higher up than we are used to, can be a big strength to our organization. Okay, so let's move on. I think we've got a pretty progressive, pretty effective organization here. Got a lot of the core elements in place. Congratulations. And if we're not scoring as high, a 4 or a 5 on those, hey, we all have opportunities. All right, just a few more slides, and I'm keeping my list here trying to cover off what I'm hoping is many of the responses I had before. But I just wanted to bring out again, this was from my research, 80 services executives, and what I heard loud and clear was the importance of customer-facing roles and a lot of new and higher expectations. Again, as a reference point, wanting SAMs, for example, to be more business savvy, And what I ask the execs what they mean, saying that, hey, we know when we get our SAMs in front of executives who have strong communication skills, who can connect the dots between the business issues important to that customer executive and our technology, it goes a long way from showing the importance of our organization and getting new business. So the more business savvy they are, the better. We want them to contribute more internally because they are so valuable. And then you can see the last two here, to drive revenue and to be a trusted advisor. Now, this was only a sample size of 80, so we got to be careful here, but all I can say is that all four of those are important across the board, and I'm guessing that the senior management in your organization would probably say the same thing. In 40-some classes and discussing this, that's a pretty true indicator of our industry. Now, another question was asking about what are the three most important skills or strengths one needs to be an effective and successful SAM. And there is specific training on core communication skills, which is vital. But I took the liberty here to maybe look at what I'm calling trust builders. And there's more than three, but the six things that we can do that can accelerate building trust, because isn't that what it's all about? So just quickly, being more transparent, letting them know the potential potholes on the path to progress and talk about how we can work together with the customer to overcome those. Finding commonalities, business-wise and personal-wise. I'm not going to go into detail here, but these are the components. And the good news is many of these aspects, cripes, we probably learned as a young kid, right? Growing up with our parents or going to church or synagogue or whatever else. But the more we can be likable, the more that we can be credible ourselves and our team, the more reliable our actions and following through, all of those work together to accelerate building trust. So that, to me, these are the six strengths that separate the most effective SAMs from everybody else. All right, was asked about what are some of the problems. Here are just a few of the stumbling blocks that I've seen, and I'd be interested for you to type in if you've seen other ones. There are some organizational restraints sometimes in organizations, and this can be very, very true. But the SAM says, I'd love to be more proactive, but I just don't have enough time, meaning I have too many accounts, or we've got too many train wrecks going on there, or we don't have enough technical people on my team, so I have to do it myself. Now, sometimes I think that this is an excuse. Other times it's real. And the way to overcome this is to actively address it and see what things can be done. Many organizations are asking SAMs to try to, quote, be a trusted advisor to way too many organizations where it just physically can't be done. Another component, I touched on this before, where sales guys get in the way. They start raising Cain in the organization, saying, I don't want these services guys doing anything unless I tell them to. That's sick, that's sad, but organizationally, services management has to go ahead and duke it out with sales and senior management. Hey, sometimes there is a lack of capabilities. We're asking SAMs to do things we might not have asked them to do before. And most of the time, once SAMs understand the importance of their proactive role, how they can positively help their customers and get new business, want to do it, but maybe they just don't know how. So that has to be addressed through training, through support, and so on. Sometimes there's an issue of mindset. Oftentimes, if we're trying to make that transition from tactical account managers to, say, more services account manager, people aren't comfortable in the role. As I stated before, some folks really don't want to sell. They're not going to do it. Or some take the approach and start to go native, where they say, hey, this is a way where I can line my pocket, and they cross that line and all the problems we talked about before. Most folks, like I said, if it's presented the right way, if they're trained appropriately, can make the transition and do a great job. 15, 20%, maybe you need to stay in an old role or transition to one that's more in line with their capabilities and what they want to do. But boy, here is a big one, and I see it all the time, and the research I've done in our industry over the years shows that that product culture is by far the biggest thing pushing us back. And part of that product culture in many organizations is where we've thrown services away, we've given them, or we've deeply discounted them to get the product deal, and hence we've trained our customers that services should be free, and how do we now start to change for them? This can be a big deal. All right. Let me go back to this. Well, I'll leave it here where we're at, because I think there's a couple related questions that I had, and Greg may have some that tie in as well. Let's see. Who should own the account? I hope we talked on that. Let's see. Distinct behaviors. Any best practice recommendations regarding determining account loading per SAM would be a help, was the question. And boy, I hate to give you a consulting answer, but man, boy, does that depend. Part of it is how we're defining the SAM role. Is the SAM still supposed to be actively involved in solving technical problems? If so, that can suck up a huge amount of time, and that means there would be less accounts involved. What's the strength of the team we have working with us? Do we happen to have the luxury of having dedicated TAMs working for us or with us, and maybe some sophisticated support on our team, a lot of horsepower? Then we can probably handle more accounts because we have those people there. How stable is the technology we're dealing with, and how sophisticated is our customer to deal with that? That'll have a bearing on how much time we have to be kind of watching and overseeing what's going on. How strategic is the account? If it's a super strategic account, if senior management says they're critical to our long-term success, we're probably going to need to spend more time than we would with an account with similar issues that is, quote, non-strategic. And a real big one there is just the personality of the account. I bet that you have some key accounts who just love to see you come in. They want to go ahead and learn what's going on in the industry, to be proactive, to utilize your specific knowledge, to move them into the next century there, and they will pay for it. Those folks are great to seeing the value and wanting a trusted advisor. Hence, you should spend time there because it's going to be rewarding to the account, rewarding to your company, and rewarding to you. But some of you may have accounts, and often they're the really big accounts, who treat everybody as a vendor. No matter what they say, they're only going to pay for the basics of their service level agreement. But they're going to try to suck everything out of the SAM and the team and the organization they can. There is a super big distributor who happens to live in Arkansas that sometimes come up. I'm not going to name names, though. I don't want to say anything. And then there is one carrier that comes up a lot in the telephony area, which fall into these categories. So to keep your sanity, trying to have more than one of these type of accounts is about crazy. But, so to put it this way, sometimes one is too many. Sometimes 10 accounts is not enough. But on an average, and don't shoot me for this, in many industries, about 5 or 6 accounts, I think, is about the maximum if we're trying to proactively grow the account and take it to the next level of performance. And if you have different opinions, great, so be it. Greg, I'm going to go down my list, but do you have any other questions we should talk about now?
Sure. Here's a few. One was about gauging the right balance of account load. So they take into account the activities that have to be accomplished and the overall hand-holding that needs to be done with specific accounts. But what's a good way to measure a good measurement that would allow you to find the right balance?
Okay. Now here, I'm a big guy on quantitative numbers. I think it's really helpful, and in most cases they work. But I think in situations like this, a more qualitative approach works. I think that's where it's appropriate to sit down, get all of the SAMs together at least once a year with SAM management. We all know, unless you're just starting out a SAM program, we already know who the problem children are with the accounts. those who totally disregard our escalation processes, those who have or feel they have executive level relationships inside your account, and just try to hammer it out. The account management group, in some situations, has been assigned that all of these are key accounts and all of them get SAMs. And if you're stuck with that, then you just have to do the best. Take the number of SAMs you have and try to distribute those out. If you're the SAM manager, try to get ones that aren't strategic and push them down to the rest of the organization, keep them out of your area. But whatever ones you have to have, talk about their personality, their needs. If you're dealing with accounts who don't want to pay for anything, but because they're big, think they should get all the special stuff, the strategy needs to be, what's the minimum that we can give these guys without them continually escalating to our senior management? So our approach there needs to be one of efficiency for those who want the added value that a key SAM does, who qualifies for trying to build a trust relationship. Then we want to go ahead and have a small number of those. So I think just get in one room, spend a day or two, list them all out, talk about who they are, what it is, think about the behavior, the characteristics of your SAMs, and try to distribute it that way. But I know, I don't know, back when I was a key account manager, I had 4 accounts in one role and 2 in the other, and I easily could have spent all of my time with one account in either role there. So depending on how you define those, you can't have too few. I hope that helps a little bit.
Great. Just another question about dealing with technical issues. So if your account is submitting cases through the support center, but they're not getting resolved in a timely fashion, and you're getting pushback from support about the ability to resolve the account's cases, do you have any advice on how to handle that?
Yeah, I think get Kevlar vests and iron underwear. I mean, it comes with our job, right? Most everybody in this role is called a manager, but we don't manage anybody. It's our ability to influence, cajole, mediate, negotiate to make ourselves successful there. So, and another big challenge I think we have, particularly if you're in a SAM role, if you're really strong technically, the immediate thing is, cripes, our technical people aren't doing it, or they're too slow, or they're not good enough. Let me take care of it. And we're setting our company back when we do it. The strategic SAM needs to be pushing everything they can that has a technological component to it to someone else on their team. And then trying to influence that we have the right technical people working on the right issues in the right way. It's that throwing those balls up in the air and trying to juggle those. The customer that thinks everything ought to be a priority and done today, to an overworked engineer who's got 80 different cases there and everybody's trying to say theirs is the priority. But I think that has to be our approach. The more you as a SAM get sucked into the technical side of things, in the long term, you're doing the organization a disservice. And I know it might be a comfort zone for us, but we've got to get out of there, and we've got to get our technical folks to stand up and help us as a part of the team.
Okay, another one about measuring the contribution of the SAM in terms of what metrics you would use to measure their contribution.
Okay, well, I think as with any good objectives, they need to tie in to the overall goals that probably, if you're a really big organization, you have like a global account team at an executive level, and they lay out the strategic accounts, the ones they must retain, our share of growth, et cetera. But I would say just some level of retention of designated accounts. There are some accounts, quite frankly, you'd be better off if they left or they didn't buy or have a SAM component to them. You may not have control of that, but of the ones that we need to keep, then there needs to be a retention bogey on those. And we ought to try to shoot for 100%. The loyalty issue is, retention is one component of that, but that gets back to that referenceability. is this the type of account that we want to be referenceable? So that needs to be decided, and we can easily measure if within a given period of time, 6 months or a year, they agree to that and they're willing to go ahead and put their picture, a quote, and give us the ability to use it in our advertising, or agree, managed appropriately, to let other folks contact them or maybe even come out to be a visit. The third side would be to growing revenue. The new technology has been sold, but the SAM, if we're in a proactive role, should be helping, either driving themselves or with services sales or with product sales, on getting a bigger share of wallet with that customer. It could be on more PS assessments. It could be on doing consulting on different processes there. It could be other products in your suite that are most appropriate. But I think all of those can be measured as well. But first, look at the overall strategic goal, what we're trying to do from an account standpoint, and making sure that our goals align there, but ideally should align with what sales is trying to accomplish once the who owns what, when, and where has been established. Oh, Greg, here's another one I missed. It says, what are the advantages and disadvantages of a customer paying for SAM-type services? The biggest advantage is when customers pay is that they see the potential value there. And as we know, if you don't pay for something, many people would react, well, if you don't pay for it, it must not be worth much, right? It's just kind of an add-on, and hence it's not very critical there. So I think a big component there is the value associated with the price tag. So in most cases, it makes sense for SAM to be sold. Some cases, it may make the most sense that SAM be assigned even though they didn't pay for it, but we still have to convey the value of what people are getting and keep reminding customers of the direct value that we have. What I hear time and time again, even inside SAM, the SAM organization's company, folks don't have a clue about what a SAM is and their value potential to the organization. So we have to take ownership. Every SAM needs to articulate the value they bring to the accounts and to their organization. And if you are the head of the SAM organization, one of your prime objectives needs to be a SAM seller, getting the word out, spreading it. Anytime customers renew, when we can demonstrate, when they say, yeah, we've got a SAM named Sue, and we renewed because of her. She does what she says. She's an instrumental partner in our success. We have to go ahead and toot our own horn, and that's one way to do it. Greg, it looks like we're the clock's, I guess, pretty well running out. On this slide, you just see some related articles if you're interested in this. The Service Account Manager Workshop brochure talks about other things besides this training, tailored training, assessments, and so on. And there's a phone number here if you want to talk with someone directly. So I'd encourage you to do that. Got a couple other webinars coming up. I'm going to be doing for the Professional Services Journal a fun session on how do we turn box pushers into sellers of the invisible. If that's an issue, that's going to be coming up on the 12th, and you can get that link there. And our next account management for sports session is going to be 2 days in June in San Jose. So that's what we're looking at from that perspective. Questions? Greg, I'll leave it up to you. I think we're about out of time. And there's my contact information. Again, that'll be sent out. And the next slide will show the contact information for Service Strategies. So I just want to say thanks. It's always tough in these one-way scenarios there. I very much appreciate your questions. They're spot on with what I hear all the time. And I hope my answers, the responses, if they didn't answer them, at least gave you something to think about. So thanks very much.
Thank you, Alex, for taking the time to go through the session with us. If anybody would like more information about our service account management training programs, assessments, or consulting services, please contact us. You can also find a schedule of upcoming public classes on our website. We will be sending out a link to a recording of the webinar as well as a PDF of the slide deck to everybody that registered for the webinar. So thank you all for attending, and we hope you have a good rest of your day.